Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and specifically welcome back to my masterclass series where I go above and beyond my regular tank review to help you with things like ace tankers or getting your third mark of excellence on a vehicle. Today we're going to be looking at the TVP T50/51. This is burst damage extreme inside World of Tanks on a very flexible platform, but boy is this a big easy target. And so for you to be able to master this tank, you're going to have to look for those opportunities where you can be cheeky without getting caught. So firstly, how has the TVP been performing recently? And I'd like to add the caveat that it's currently top of the tree and also featured in a battle pass, so the amount of people who have been playing the TVP are very extreme, even more so than the Leopard. Well, its raw win ratio is actually 5th from bottom, below tanks like the Concept 5 or the M48. And if we take a look at its win ratio difference, it's not too much better, which is very interesting because if we look at the TVP's damage per game, it's actually in the middle of the pack. And that's most likely because the TVP just has absolutely no armor. This thing cannot take a hit, and it's possibly one of the biggest, easiest, juiciest things to shoot that when I'm playing an FE405, I am going to be salivating. However, outside of this horrible armor, the TVP really has some standout statistics. Incredible damage per minute, being able to deliver 1,280 damage within 4.5 seconds because of its incredible intra-clip reload. Not the worst gun handling, not the worst accuracy, great shell velocity in its standard rounds, although poor premium pen for 310 on its heat rounds. The vehicle's pretty fast. It's got itself 8 degrees of gun depression. It's also got itself 410 meters view range, so it never has to worry about things like coated optics. Accordingly, just make sure you have a really skilled commander on your TVP, have situational awareness, recons, in addition to the basic stuff like brothers in arms, repairs, and concealment. You should be good to go. On your gunner, I really recommend that you use Deadeye, because this thing pens a lot of shots, and the more crits you can deal to your opponents, the better. Add to that Snapshot to improve your gun handling, as well as the basic things. For your driver, nothing is really super important here. I personally like Smooth Ride to try and improve my gun handling, off-road driving so I could keep moving, and the basic stuff. This thing doesn't really have too many issues with getting set on fire, so I wouldn't prioritize firefighting or preventative maintenance. Controlled impact, are you really ramming anything in a TVP? For the loader, you can pretty much take everything. I wouldn't really bother with Adrenaline Rush because this vehicle has such a good reload anyway. And one thing that I would prioritize is taking Intuition. This will allow you to change out an entire mag in 4 to 5 seconds, which can be very useful if you no longer need that heat magazine because you're shooting through tracks, for example, with your APCR rounds. Equipment-wise, I personally like to run vents for the all-round performance on this tank. Vert stab so I can get the rounds out quickly. Very important with the vehicle's very good intra-clip reload. And then your third piece of equipment, I think it comes down to a decision between an aiming device or using a rotation device to further reduce the bloom after firing. However, with the field mod, the penultimate field mod, new aiming gears, which reduces your bloom after firing by 15%, which does make your reload 5% worse, but doesn't affect your intra-clip. I don't feel like you need the rotation device, and I think you'll do better by using the aiming device on this vehicle, which makes this thing have very good accuracy at decent distances. I've got mine down to 0.27. My second build on the TVP, I would recommend to go full scout with vents, vision system, and an exhaust. That makes this thing actually rather sneaky for those big bushy maps. You can actually get up to 37% concealment while you're moving and 44% concealment when you're stationary. And remember, your view range on this vehicle is excellent, even if you do lower it with the field mods. Field mods wise, I'm going to be taking module durability, accuracy, then I'm going to be improving the camo rating on this tank. As I said, the new aiming gears is a must. And for the final field mod, if you use a premium consumable, you can easily sacrifice 3% view range to be able to gain forward speed and engine power, which makes this thing rapid indeed at 62 with a very impressive power to weight ratio. But you know what? That's enough faffing. Let's get stuck into some games. Okay, so first up, we're going to be rolling out on airfield, and you'll see that I'm going to be going for my full damage build. On a map like this, there's not really too many bushes, and I will be using this build for probably about 70 or 80% of the maps that I get on. For my Visiony base build, we're probably getting on Malinovka, we're getting on Prokhorovka, Muravanka, possibly Fisherman's Bay, possibly Live Oaks as well, depending on how we decide that we want to play that map. But on this kind of a map, I want to do one thing and one thing only. That's make my way up towards the north, contest these bushes, and hopefully I'm going to show you how to knock down these trees to extend the bush line. When you do this, you have to be very specific. You want to knock that tree in that location, then you want to come over slightly towards the right to make sure we're getting these bushes to stack up. And you'll see that we knock that one finally into there. And then that has created an extended bush line. And while our opponents might try and blind fire occasionally here, this is really what the TVP is made of. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's just what you've got to try and find in the TVP. If you find these situations where you outflank your opponents, or you manage to just get those big clean mags in, you can change the game in an instant. Now, the trick with the TVP is to try and find those magazines. And when we're creating a lovely crossfire, we're creating some fantastic bushes here. Again, just waiting for the opportunity. And the UDES actually blind fires us around that corner. Nice little revenge shot there. But oh dear, aimed a little bit too high there. We got the second in, got the third in, gonna go for the fourth. Unfortunately, the low penetration on these standard rounds of only 246, I believe. 248, actually. Mr. QuickyBaby. Not enough to go through the side of the Object 452K there. And it is definitely one of the downsides. When you're playing the Bat Chat, I think you got like 259 pen, around that kind of mark. And that is enough to be able to contest the sidearm a lot better than you will do with these 248mm penetration rounds. So, the TVP. This tank, it's very tricky because you want to contest the early positions, but honestly, it's so big and it's not exactly the fastest of tanks that quite often you end up getting burnt a little bit getting there on quite a few scenarios. But I think the biggest mistake that people make is that they don't try. They don't try to commit. Sure, you might go in and only get one mag off, or maybe you go in and get 1 or 2 mags off, but really, I feel that you have to be bold in this vehicle. This is not meant to be a tank that's chilling at a distance. It's meant to be a tank which contests those early positions. It's meant to be a tank that goes after the 452K. It's meant to be a tank that puts somehow an entire magazine there through the front of the relatively new Tier 10 Soviet heavy tank. And these mags, they add up. It's the perfect kind of tank as well for having a little bit of a respite, a little bit of a chill between the mags, but not too much. It's not like you're playing a Bat Chap. It's not like you're playing even sort of like a lion within that regard, if you've been foolish and decided to fire off that 4th shell. But this is a little bit bold, isn't it? I'm sitting in front of a Skoda, but I've got the better intraclip reload. And sometimes you just got to let the chips fall where they may. We put 3 into the Skoda and finish off the T49 as well with a 50-50 roll against the Tier 9 American light tank. And this is what's scary about this tank. If I'm in a Bat Chat, maybe I can fire like 2 shots. And then what am I going to do? Reload for 40 seconds after I've fired 2 shots? The Bat Chat is the kind of tank that wants to find a very healthy target and assassinate them and then spend 40 seconds of downtime. The TVP, on the other hand, and you can see our intuition proc here because I didn't know whether I was going to have to deal with the front or the back of the E75. The TVP, on the other hand, wants to be stuck more in this kind of like frenetic combat. And this is just TVP perfection right now with the kinds of opportunities that we're finding. We take the early aggressive position, we use it to dump off an ambush mag, and then our opponents are under pressure from multiple angles. And this vehicle can be an incredibly proficient scout. Well, not scout, sorry. An incredibly proficient support tank within that regard. And then, like, unlike the other autoloaders, this one just claps, 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 claps. And it's amazing how quickly the damage adds up when you've got 2,600 base damage per minute. And what's really awesome about this vehicle is, as I said, unlike the Bat Chat, which quite often ends up having an awkward reload, where it fires 2 and then has to spend like 40 seconds reloading, if you fire 2 shots in this tank, and then you have to use the vehicle's reload of a base 25 seconds, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to ignore the T30, well, at least until we're going to go and finish them off. Well, not quite. Oh, we left them on 180. But ladies and gents, in 5 minutes, that was 7,000 damage with 1,500 assistance. It is the dream for the TVP. And if you like your autoloaders fast, aggressive, and dangerous, and you're not afraid to commit to the situation, then maybe the TVP will be the one for you. Okay, now that you've seen the raw power of the TVP and how brutal it can be even in short periods of time when it gets going with bursting out its mags, I'm going to show you a little bit more of a tricky scenario, and also how I managed to 3-mark most of my Tier 10 medium tanks. I think there's only a couple of Tier 10 medium tanks now with regards to tech tree tanks that I haven't 3-marked, and that is using vision system, exhaust, and vents. In this combo, you turn your medium tank into a light tank. And when you're playing on an excellent light tank map, like Malinovka, probably the second best light tank map in the game, or arguably the best light tank map in the game, you can give your team 2 of the most important class. And so with the TVP, you definitely lose a significant amount of the gun handling when you build like this. Now you can see that what was previously a scalpel is now more of a hammer. But it's a bit of a bad analogy in a way, because sometimes you would actually need a hammer, whereas this is just basically just a worse version of the previous TVP that you got to see me play with the vert stabs and with the aiming device. However, you can still do some really good damage even without the vert stabs and the aiming device on this vehicle. The vents will be helping in all regards. So, we've got into position, we've managed to now clap out the Skoda T50, and from this scenario it's just about being cheeky but not too cheeky. And honestly, I think that 4th shot, I think that was too cheeky. Going up on that ridgeline, exposing myself to possibly the IS-7, the ISU, the SU, everything, just to be able to get 1 shot in, that is a big risk for little payoff. And in the TVP especially, you want to be trying to put yourself in positions where the payoff is big and the threat is not nearly so significant. Now the problem with the TVP is it's not like a bat chat, right, where the payoff is really big, as in you can clip out the entirety of the enemy vehicle. At best you're doing 1,280 damage, although in 4.5 seconds. So what you find with the TVP is that there are a lot more opportunities for it than there are opportunities for a bat chat. And that can make it so much more of a relaxed autoloader to play, or an autoloader where you feel like you can actually just do something in all scenarios, and you don't have to be waiting around for so long. In a TVP, you can really push the tempo against your opponents, or feel like you're involved in the battle. Whereas with the longer autoloaders, like the bat chat, you really do feel like you're just hanging around and waiting for that perfect opportunity. So the TVP is a lot more action-based, whereas the bat chat is going to be more like fishing. And with this kind of a build, yeah, we're just fishing for some mistakes on the enemy team. So my big tips for the TVP so far, I haven't really mentioned that playing the support role on this tank is so darn important. Because it's huge, it's a fat tank with awful armor. A lot of people who don't have this kind of aspect to their gameplay, where they feel confident with the vision game, and they know how to play like a light tank in this scenario, they might struggle with this kind of action. For those players who want to just build up their gameplay in the TVP, you might want to start off by just trying to be damage support. Try and find a heavy tank that's going off. Maybe you can be able to supplement their damage. Try and find somebody who's clearly going to commit to a flank and be there before they are to be able to punish them. Try and find someone who fires off a big shot and then come around the corner and put an entire magazine into them. Those are like your bread and butter easy autoloader trades. I'm just thinking, shall I finish this guy off? I'm going to risk it. Am I going to get spotted? Yes, I will. Just about. That was actually quite late on the spotting. And unfortunately, I'm going to get caught out by the Minotauro, but get a little bit more vision against the T-54 E1. And you're seeing just how much this vision system is paying off right now. Sometimes you can't be the damage dealer. Sometimes your team needs you to keep them in it and to allow them to be successful through you providing the vision. As I said, on Malinovka or Prokhorovka, if you can double the amount of light tanks on your team, then you can allow players who would be outclassed to be more successful. And especially on a map like this, where it doesn't feel like there's any opportunities to really isolate your opponents. That's always what you want to do with your autoloaders, is isolate your opponents. But on a map like this, it quite often comes down to heavy tanks all fighting at the same time, or if you try and make a push play to try and catch someone, there could be a massive amount of crossfire on a big open map like this, with no opportunities to hide behind buildings, or hide behind any big rocks to be able to recover. Isolating in autoloaders is super important, but what's really going to set you apart from the average TVP players are how you can manage to work your vision on a vehicle like this. And that's why I'm playing the scout build on this tank. So you'll see that I'm just trying to look for opportunities to be able to get in, and oh gosh, there's a Borsig right in front of me. And this is where that lack of vert stabs is just absolutely painful. I'm 90% certain that if I'd been using my other build, I would have been able to finish them off, and I really didn't think I was rushing that shot, but it looks like I was. The lack of the vert stabs, the lack of the aiming device mean that I only put one round into the Borsig when I needed to connect two. However, he says, I don't think this Borsig realizes that I'm using the designated target directive. So he doesn't realize that he was spotted for 15 seconds there, pretty much. And so I know that he's still chilling in that bush. And so I'm going to be able to finish them off before they manage to catch me. Just getting spotted. Now, we did get shot by the Progetto down towards the southwest of this map. We've got to be careful right now. If that Progetto catches us anymore, we are going to be down and out. And I can tell you, the Progetto on the enemy team is a very good player, and they're going to have a very good game in this round. It's going to have to be a battle of wits here between the top two medium tanks on either side in a lovely matchup for the TVP. So I'm coming around here thinking, like, can I get that TL7? I'm hoping that I can isolate the TL7, and I'm hoping still that the Progetto is all the way down towards the southwest where he last shot me from, and that I should be able to avoid him while also catching this TL7. So I'm going to spot him here, and I'm thinking about going for the corner. But oh my word, disaster. The Progetto came back. I can't believe that the Progetto came back, but I guess he's thinking about rotating roughly at the same time as me. Absolute nightmare now. I lose a shell to the TL7, and the Progetto forces me back from being able to make a sneaky play. I was really hoping I could have got into that position, engaged that TL7, and I was hoping that the enemies had left a bit of a hole down towards the northwest with regards to vision. And the only tank that was unspotted was the AT-15, who just got lit up where the Progetto was. And okay, alright, if the Progetto's come back, what I'll do then instead is I'll flank down, deal with the AT-15, and then try and extend some vision up towards the west. You've got to try and create avenues or lines of vision where your opponents don't know where you are until it's too late. And then all the more, none the more punishing than the TVP within that regard for dealing the damage once you're there. Alright, so a pretty darn solid game so far. We're up to 6,000 combined, a lot of that spotting from the vision system, and 4 frags to our name. And I'm hoping that, you know, the Progetto's going up, he's trying to rotate, go north, and then I'm going to be able to make my way down towards the AT-15. But the Progetto actually dropped back, and unfortunately you'll see that these heat rounds, one of them gets absorbed, one of them only hits the tracks, and what a nightmare mag. An opportunity that I was hoping I'd be able to isolate this AT-15 and finish them off turns into just not managing to catch that Progetto. And this Progetto, they're doing a good job. I feel like they're mirroring my movements here. Whether they're doing that intentionally or if it's just a bad series of events for me. But we've really hit a lull in our stage of game with regards to where we're able to go and how effective we're able to be. So the TL7 gets caught out in the open and aiming. Hopefully we're going to be able to get shots into his hull. There's one, there's two, ricochet off, and fully aimed 3. And you can see even without vert stabs, it's only about half a second or a second that you have to sit still extra to be able to be fully aimed in this vehicle, which really shows you that the gun handling on this tank is excellent once you take that penultimate field mod to reduce the bloom by 15%. It really does make and break the TVP. So if any of you have just got this vehicle and didn't think it was that special, wait until you get the penultimate field mod. Make sure you take the one that I recommend, and suddenly your vehicle is going to be able to dump out mags like there's no tomorrow. Okay, so our team is up a frag, but actually down on hit points. And once again, this Progetto is in just an annoying position for me. Luckily, I managed to ricochet their shell. And this Progetto, every time I try to attack, they've been there waiting for me. Not that they knew where I was or how either they're predicting my movements. They're not doing it with any kind of vision in that scenario. But I'm just hoping now that this Progetto will give me a little bit of room to get back into this game, as we've done precious little since we shut down that Borsig pretty much about 5 minutes ago. And in a very close game where we're down by 2,300 hit points. So I'm just hoping that now what I've invested into, aka the spotting on this tank, is going to pay off. And really towards the end of the game, if you can outspot your opponents, what can they do to you? So we light up the Progetto. They get caught by the vision system through the bush, and the A phase 1 is made useful. Have a quick look at the WZ, who's on 4 frags and still on 100% of their hit points. I tell the Gorilla to fall back, hoping that he'll kite, because I still need a little bit of time to get this Progetto to make a mistake. While I can dump 1,280 damage into this vehicle, it's still only a 50-50 if I'm going to finish them off. So what I'm going to do is wait. Hope that T95 or the A phase 1's going to go after them. And you know what? I'm done waiting. Am I done waiting? Am I done waiting? He's behind a bush. Let's go. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. And there's 4. And oh my word, did that feel satisfying. And because of the bush that was further than 10 meters away from our vehicle, we get to finish them off and pick up our top gun of this game. And unfortunately, it means that the A phase 1 dies. The BZ now and the WZ on the enemy team were locked in a battle of the top guns here, where the WZ-113 GFT is going for theirs and we've already secured ours. And that really was just an exhaust vision system difference there against the Progetto. If we're able to outspot him, we're able to decide about when and where the engagement goes down. Although, as we saw earlier, we didn't manage to decide where the engagement went down, as they put themselves in some tricky positions against me. Alright, that's what I'm talking about. The T95 shuts down the BZ-176. And now we've just got a full health WZ-113G to deal with. I asked the team whether he's still on full health, hoping that the Gorilla maybe got a shot into them. It's only really the Gorilla that's going to be able to tell us. And the T95 is still making their way towards us. I was hoping that the T95 was going to go capture the base, because in a game of kissy chase here, I don't think the T95 is quite quick enough to be able to catch the WZ. Nevertheless, it looks like we managed to spot them. I'm hoping the WZ is going to get a shot, and it looks like the Gorilla did actually manage to hit the WZ. Talk about hitting the WZ. The T95 puts a big old shot in. I put 1 extra into the back of the vehicle, and I've got 3 heat rounds loaded. And while this WZ-113G FT looks like they've had an absolute awesome game of World of Tanks, this is not where you want to be in a 1 versus 2. They're valiantly trying to push, but the T95 misses what looks like an APCR round off them. I'm going to put 1 more cheeky shell into the WZ, and it is looking great for this player. But let's just take our time. Don't want to turn this into anything stupid. And if I die, that means that the T95 on my team is not going to be able to catch this 113. And to all intents and purposes, the 113 might be sneaky, get into a good position, and dump 2 heat rounds right through the, albeit super thick, super heavy turtle. So I don't want to get caught right now. So you actually see I'm going to swing my tank and go back towards the building, because I know as long as the T95 is here, we can force the WZ to attack. I'm not going to be stupid enough to go through this window. So I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do a little bit of trolling here, see if I can distract him and get the T95 focused up as well. The 113 fires, and then it's just a formality as we managed to pick up our 7th kill. And this was a great game of World of Tanks. This was near enough 10,000 combined that we saw for the TVP. It was a challenging game. We had to go everywhere. We had to use as many of the mechanics at our disposal, pick our opportunities. And it really shows you that once you've got the exhaust and the vision system on this tank, that you can choose when those engagements happen. And the TVP has 2 modes. First, you go to an aggressive position with a damagey build and you try to destroy whatever's going to be there. The second one, I found great success, and it's how I managed to get my 3rd mark fairly easily on the TVP, was to make sure that I had a build so I could control the engagement on these long range maps, because the last thing that you want is to have to depend on your opponents making mistakes, or just go to a heavy tank flank and just hope that they don't shoot you. So both of these games were ace tankers for the TVP, with the second one being a whopping 1,582 base experience. We've got a patrol duty medal, we've got a little bit of hidden spotting, so this was actually 10,700 combined. And as we didn't fire too many gold rounds, we make a 24,000 credits profit. And my condolences to the Progetto on the enemy team, who'd actually done 2,000 damage more than me, but they didn't do the amount of spotting that I did. I did more spotting than they did in damage. Sometimes it's about being the team player and also keeping hidden to be able to secure those frags, as we destroyed half of the enemy team. And that WZ as well was up to 6,000 damage. This was a great game from both teams, and a shout out to my T95 Lackey for getting us through at the end. All in all, to conclude, you can't really go wrong with a TVP. Play it aggressively, get into a fight early on in the game. You're either going to win that position, most likely in a 1v1, as long as you can aim properly, or you can go and play another tank inside your garage. It's a fast, fun, aggressive tank that you can play a lot more YOLO than you could do in a bat chat, for example. However, I personally don't think this tank is as good or even as fun as a Progetto 65 and definitely not as fun as a Lion. I would still personally recommend those tanks. Even though the Progetto has been nerfed, I just think that a lot of the meta players shifted away from the Progetto to play other kinds of tanks. And I still think that the Progetto is probably the better player for the majority of gamers than the TVP. However, if you absolutely utterly want to have some crazy carry potential with high damage per minute and you don't want to have to think ahead like you do in a bat chat, then the TVP might still be the tank for you. And it is probably the easiest of the autoloaders to play, but whether it's going to be the most fun or most satisfying once you master it, that'll be down to you and your preference. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, and you love the Masterclass series, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the TVP. Do you think it's a 10 out of 10 medium tank? Is it fun? Is it competitive? Did you not manage to make it work? And if that was the case, why? What held you back with the vehicle? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.